In the earliest days of being in San Francisco and being in the Castro, it just became more and more this kind of background din of something's coming, like a storm was building. And then I'll never forget the day when I noticed, like, well, all of a sudden it hit me how many for rent signs I saw in windows just down the block from me. And I remember thinking, like, they're all leaving. They're dying or they're leaving. And I remember this thing of like, oh my God, we are really in the middle of it. I became positive in 1985. I didn't test until a few years later, a couple of years later. And then I remember going and getting tested. And I remember being too afraid to go and get my test. And it was just, I was just living with that hope of maybe you dodged a bullet, maybe you're really okay. And I was sitting at Cafe Flora, and I remember thinking to myself, this is such a great day. Like, you could even find out you're positive today. I swear to God, it just was like, you just feel strong today. It's so beautiful. And I went to the corner of the Cafe Flora that had the payphone. And I called up, and a woman answered the phone, and she's like, oh my God, where have you been? She goes, there's dust on this file. And I said, I know. I thought I was chicken. And she just says, oh, I'm so sorry. And she goes, you're positive. After I found out, I remember, it's everything, right? You have these memories. So one of the things was, I'll never forget walking through the Castro and feeling like this diseased pariah. And any time that guilt, any time that someone looks or cruises you just think like, oh, you don't know, I'm poison. And that horrible feeling and crying my eyes out, and then like having a trick probably like an hour and a half later. I wanted my diagnosis to matter. I was being told, and I saw that I wasn't probably going to have this life like this. I was going to have a life like that. But if that's the life I was going to get, then I was going to fill that. I just wanted to fill it with as much love that I possibly could, with the people around me, with my friends. And I wanted it to be as big as if it was a really long life. And it was easy to do because there were other people that needed the same thing, that they wanted that. People wanted to make a difference. People wanted to come together. People wanted to be like, how do we address this? How do we do this? How do we do this horror story that we're walking through? There is an experience of trauma and pain and loss that nobody can really understand unless they were there at that time. So I immediately started experiencing the losses like early on. And, but I have to say, I wasn't there for every one of them. It's a strange feeling for me, a sense of, in reflecting back, a little sense of guilt of like that I didn't follow the people that were falling aside. I wasn't able to keep up with everybody. I'll never forget this. I was listening to my answering machine, and someone gets on and says, and they said a name, I don't remember. Oh, like Joey died, And I remember, like, I just like heard the beginning of that, and I just unconsciously fast forwarded it to the next call. And I remember right after I finished fast forwarding it, saying like, don't ever do that again. Like, I don't know if it was protecting myself or if it was literally the boredom of losing so many people. Like, I was like, got it. And I didn't. And I stopped crossing off names, and I started highlighting names on them, which I think so many of us started doing. We started highlighting people that passed and said, I used to cross. And then it just looks too horrible. It looks too horrible to look at your address book like that. My former partner and his daughter, now our daughter, came into my life in 1995. And He had lost his partner to HIV. She had lost her dad to HIV. And then I was coming into their lives as another person with HIV. And it was terrifying to me. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I got my whole dream life come true. Is a family, a built-in family. I'm becoming a dad. And then I thought, holy crap, what if the shoe drops? And it was so scary to me. And so that year was when I started taking the triple combination. It was like 95, 96. And it was a rough start. And then my T cells, everything came back. And I would always remained healthy, but then numbers were showing that I was healthy. Like if we remember what that was like in the 80s to test positive, you were trash if you were a positive person. Like it was, nobody wanted to say that. Nobody wanted to. So the first people that came out and that told their stories and that came out as being identified as a person living with HIV, they were the true heroes of, like, to have that kind of courage and to take that kind of judgment and that kind of heat and to give people that kind of strength of, oh, I could do that. My wiring was more like somewhere between denial and taking on the challenges of friends and people in our community getting really sick, and then folks that are staying well needing to come together and to be together. So that was what felt like the comfortable place for me. Honoring our experience, here's how it started. It started as I had this experience of being over a decade on disability. So I knew what it was like to walk around the Castro with nowhere to go. There's only so many times you can drive your kid to school. And so here there were people that had this very unique experience and that were on disability. We weren't going to school. We didn't have jobs. We didn't have places. We did not have community. We did not have programs that were specifically focused towards long-term survivors. It was incredible how many of us really lost everyone that was our chosen family. So many of us. So that's what I wanted. That I wanted to create a space for that. It was one of those things where an idea whose time had come, because several other long-term survivor programs, it was like where we understood, oh, there's this experience of being HIV positive, but then there's this other experience of being from that day, being from that time when there was no hope whatsoever and all of that profound loss. You know, we went through that storm, the dust settled, and all of a sudden we realized, oh my God, like here I am and I'm going to live. Oh, we changed things. We changed things. This group that was this vilified group turned it out to be these guardian angels of like how to take care of one another in the midst of challenging times, that the world learned from this community. That is one of the things that I think is profound for me, is that we learned exactly who we are. We learned it the minute HIV came in. We knew we were relying on one another. And it's all true today. We're still doing that. We're still taking care of one another. We also changed the world in that people recognized the power of love and community and caring for one another and the incredible importance that it has in our lives. There's nothing that can replace that.